Fellow Earthlings, Corey. So, training the mind and cultivating loving kindness. All Dharma agrees at one point. In this case, Dharma has nothing to do with the philosophical term Dharma, or things as they are. Dharma here simply means teachings. We could say that all teachings are basically a way of subjugating or shedding our ego. And depending on how much the lesson of the subjugation of ego is taking hold on in us, that much reality is presented to us. All dharmas that have been taught are connected with that. There's no other dharma, no other teachings exist, particularly in the teachings of Buddha. In this particular journey, the practitioner can be put on a scale, and his or her commitment can be measured. It is like the scale of justice. If your ego is heavy, you go down. If your ego is light, you go up. So giving up our personal project of ego aggrandizement and attaining the impersonal project of enlightenment depends on how heavy-handed or how open you are. Whether teachings are hyena or Mahana, Hinayana or Mahana, they all agree. The purpose of all of them is simply to overcome ego. Otherwise, there is no purpose at all. Whatever sutras, scriptures, or commentaries on teachings of Buddhism you read, they should all connect with being and be understood as ways of taming your ego. This is one of the main differences between theism and non-theism. Theistic traditions tend to build up an individual substance of some kind so that you can then step out and do your own version of so-called bodhisattvic actions. But in the non-theistic Buddhist traditions, we talk in terms of having no being, no characteristics of egohood, and therefore being able to perform a much broader version of bodhisattva activity altogether. The Hinayana version of taming ego is to cut through sloppiness and yandering mind by the application of shamatha discipline or mindfulness. Shamatha practice cuts through the fundamental mechanism of ego, which is that ego has to maintain itself by providing lots of subconscious gossip and discursive thoughts. Beyond that, the Vipassana practice of awareness also allows us to cut through our ego, being aware of the whole environment and bringing that into our basic discipline allows us to become less self-centered and more in contact with the world around us. So there's less reference points to me and my-ness. In the Mahayana, when we begin to realize the Bodhisattva principle through practicing Buddhacta, our concern is more with warmth and skillfulness. We realize we have nothing to hang on to in ourselves, so we can give away each time. The basis of such compassion is non-territoriality, non-ego, no ego at all. If you have that, then you have compassion. Then further warmth and workability and gentleness take place as well. All Dharma agrees at one point. Means that if there is no ego clinging, then all dharmas are one, all teachings are one. That is compassion. In order to have an affectionate attitude to somebody else, you have to be without ground to begin with. Otherwise, you become an egomaniac trying to attract people out of your seduction and passion alone and your arrogance. Compassion develops from shunyata, or non-ground, because you have nothing to hold on to, nothing to work with, no project, no personal gain, no ulterior motives. Therefore, whatever you do is a clean job, so to speak. So compassion and shunyata work together. It is like sunning yourself at the beach. For one thing, you have a beautiful view of the sea and the ocean and the sky and everything, and there is also sunlight and heat and the ocean coming toward you. In the jnana, our ego begins to get a haircut. Its beard is shaved. In jnana, the limbs of ego are cut. So there are no longer any arms and legs. We even begin to open up our torso of ego by developing ultimate bodhicitta. We take away the heart so that nothing exists at all. Then we try to utilize the leftover mess of cut off arms and legs and heads and hearts, along with lots of blood, applying the Bodhisattva approach. We make use of them. We don't throw them away. We don't want to pollute our world with lots of leftover egos. Instead, we bring them into the path of Dharma by examining them and making use of them. So whatever happens in your life becomes a way of measuring your progress on that path. How much you have been able to shed your limbs, your torso, and your heart. That is why the slogan goes with another saying of the Kadampa teachers, which is shedding of ego is a scale that measures the practitioner. If you have more ego, you will be heavier on the scale. If you have less ego, you will be lighter. That is a measure of how much meditation and awareness have developed and how much mindfulness have been overcome. I had posted a video of the drinking gourd, follow the drinking gourd. So, I mean, I suppose we've, in America, went far off track from what that was, because that was an underground railroad from people that were running away from slave holders. However, there was so I'm going to tie something into that though. The Convention Against Torture and Other Inhumane and Degrading Treatment or Punishment. The Torture Convention was adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations on December 10th, 1984. And the reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of, Orwell's 1984 and blase. So I figured that quite coincidental or not. A Resolution 3946. The convention entered into force on June 26th, 1987, after it had been ratified by 20 states. The reason I bring that up, unfortunately, you have a system that has condoned forceful practices of medication being forced upon people, and particularly psychotropic medications, which would garner ill-gotten gains to another party, and not the one that it's being done to. So I do have a question. There's a guy named, I think his name is Kevin Fletcher. He's in charge of NAMI. So Michigan has a $21 billion budget for mental health care in the state. So if normal equals logic, logic equals truth, truth equals courage, courage equals good, and then underneath that, virtues equal gifts, gifts equal strengths, strengths equal good. Well, if that does ring true, I am curious to know who actually owns the rights to the psychiatric industry in the state. Because I had signed that and dated it years ago, back in 2013, as a download. Two shout outs that I'd like to give a shout out to today. Vetpaw.org. It's an organization for veterans against poaching. Kudos. And Guardian Group. It's another one that I'd like to also give shout outs to, because it's a veteran organization. So thank you guys for doing what you do, both of those two organizations.